My wife cheated on me, but I got my revenge. I re-registered and bought a car repair shop with her money, and after the divorce, they remained mine. You never think a routine day at work is going to change your life. That's what happened to me. My name is Alex, and I'm a 38-year-old mechanic. Been working with cars since I was a teenager, covered in oil and grease before I even had a driver's license. I run my own shop, nothing fancy, but enough to keep the lights on and the bills paid. The day I met Melissa was just like any other, until it wasn't. She came into my shop, frustrated as hell, driving a white BMW that had broken down a few blocks away. I could tell immediately she wasn't the kind of person who spent time in places like mine. Expensive heels, perfectly manicured nails, and a look of pure disgust as she took in the grease-stained walls of my garage. "My car just stopped," she said, her voice clipped and impatient. "Pop the hood," I replied, wiping my hands on a rag. She stared at me like I'd just spoken a foreign language. With a sigh, I walked over, opened it myself, and started checking things out. Turns out it was a simple issue, nothing that couldn't be fixed in half an hour. While I worked, she scrolled through her phone, sighing every couple of minutes. "I have a meeting," she muttered, as if that would make me move faster. "Almost done," I said. When I finished, she barely looked at me. "How much?" "On the house," I said. "Just a loose connection. No big deal." That got her attention. She actually looked at me then, her eyes narrowing. "Seriously?" "Yeah. Just don't stall it out again." She smirked, just a little. "Well, thanks, I guess." Then she got in the car and drove off without another word. I figured that was the end of it. I was wrong. A week later, Melissa came back. Not because of car trouble this time. She just showed up, said she wanted to buy me lunch to repay the favor. I was suspicious at first. Women like her didn't go for guys like me. She had that polished, high-class look, fancy clothes, expensive perfume, the whole thing. I was a mechanic. My hands were always dirty. My shirt smelled like motor oil, and my idea of dressing up was a clean flannel. But we went out for lunch, and somehow, it wasn't terrible. She was sarcastic, blunt, and had a sharp tongue, but she was also weirdly fascinating. She talked about her job in marketing, how she hated her coworkers, how she grew up rich but felt trapped by expectations. I listened, not really knowing what to say, and she seemed to like that. One lunch turned into 2, then 3, then dinners, then late nights at my place. Melissa wasn't exactly warm. She didn't do affection like most people, but when she wanted to, she could be intoxicating, funny, sharp, even charming in her own way. The problem was, she hated my job. "You could do better," she'd say. "You're smart, Alex. Why waste your life in a garage?" "I like what I do." "Yeah, but you could do something more." I never knew what she meant by that. More money? More prestige? I didn't care about either. I worked hard, paid my bills, and liked fixing cars. That was enough for me. But for Melissa, it wasn't. Even when we moved in together, she never stopped making little comments. "Don't wear that shirt. It smells like oil. Maybe wash your hands before touching the furniture." I don't want my friends to know I'm dating a mechanic. They wouldn't understand. I should have seen the warning signs. We dated for 5 years. 5 long years of me ignoring the little voice in my head that said, "This isn't going to work." But love makes you do stupid things. Or maybe it wasn't even love. Maybe it was just the idea of someone like her being with someone like me. When she brought up marriage, I was hesitant. "Are you sure?" I asked. She rolled her eyes. "Why wouldn't I be? We've been together forever. It's just the next step." Not exactly the most romantic proposal, but I said yes anyway. Her father, rich, cold, and very clear about the fact that he didn't approve of me, offered to help with a mortgage. Not for my sake, of course, but because he didn't want his daughter living in some dump. So we bought a house. A beautiful 2-story place in a nice neighborhood, way out of my price range. Her dad put down the initial payment. I covered everything else, the mortgage, the bills, the maintenance. Melissa never chipped in. Not once. "That's your job," she said when I brought it up. "You're the man, aren't you?" I laughed it off, like I always did. Marriage didn't change Melissa. If anything, it made things worse. She started spending more time out. Late nights at work, dinners with friends. She had an endless stream of excuses, and when I questioned them, she'd get defensive. "Are you checking up on me?" "No, I just—" "Jesus, Alex, I have a life. You want me to sit at home all day waiting for you to get back from playing with cars?" It wasn't just that. She nitpicked everything. My clothes. My hobbies. The way I talked. It was like she was embarrassed to be married to me, but still wanted the benefits of having a husband to pay for everything. And still, I stayed. Because that's what you do when you've sunk years into something. You keep hoping it'll get better. Until the day it all fell apart. I started noticing it at the first big party we went to after getting married. It was one of Melissa's work events, some networking thing with a bunch of marketing executives and their spouses. I had never really fit into that world, but I was used to being the odd one out. What I wasn't used to was Melissa pretending I was someone I wasn't. "This is my husband, Alex," she said, smiling that perfect, practiced smile. "He runs his own business." I raised an eyebrow, but shook hands with the guy she introduced me to. Some corporate stiff in a $1,000 suit. "Oh, what kind of business?" Melissa's grip on my arm tightened, just slightly. "He's an automotive entrepreneur," she said smoothly. I almost laughed out loud. "I'm a mechanic," I corrected. The guy gave a polite nod and moved on to the next conversation. Melissa, on the other hand, looked like I had just spit on the floor. "Why would you say that?" she hissed under her breath. "Because it's the truth." She forced a smile and took a sip of her wine, her eyes scanning the room like she was making sure no one else had heard. "There's a way to present yourself, Alex. No one needs to know you're covered in grease all day." I let it go. That was the first mistake. At every event after that, I stopped being her husband, the mechanic. I became her husband, the business owner, the automotive entrepreneur, the small business operator. It was ridiculous, but I let it happen because I didn't want to fight. Melissa's career was taking off. She got a promotion, then another one. Soon she was a senior marketing director, making more money than I ever would. And with every step up the ladder, she changed a little more. She started buying designer clothes, luxury bags, expensive shoes that cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. I didn't care. It was her money. She could spend it however she wanted. But what bothered me was how she started treating me. "You don't have to work so much," she said one night over dinner. "I can take care of things." I frowned. "I don't need you to take care of me." She smiled, but it wasn't the kind of smile that made you feel good. "I'm just saying, if you ever wanted to slow down." I knew what she meant. She didn't want me to slow down. She wanted me to stop. She wanted me to be something else. Something cleaner. Something more like the men she worked with. Then came the late nights. At first, it was just an hour or two. A big project, a tight deadline, drinks with colleagues. It was fine. Then it became a pattern. She'd leave early and come home late. One night, I was already in bed when she came in, smelling like expensive perfume and red wine. "You're still up?" she asked, kicking off her heels. "Yeah," I said, staring at the ceiling. "I told you I'd be late." "I know." She climbed into bed and rolled over without another word. I could have ignored it. I wanted to ignore it. But then I saw the credit card bill. $782. At a steakhouse I had never been to. A place where a single meal cost more than my entire grocery bill for the month. I asked her about it the next morning. "Oh," she said, barely glancing up from her coffee. "That was a work dinner. $700? She laughed. "Relax, Alex. It wasn't just me. There were 6 of us." I let it go. Again. Then it happened again. And again. Dinners. Bars. Hotels. Hotels. That was when the sick feeling started in my gut. One night, she came home later than usual. It was past midnight. I was sitting in the living room, waiting. "Where were you?" I asked. She sighed, dropping her purse on the table. "Jesus, Alex. I told you. I had a work dinner." I stared at her. "At a hotel?" Her eyes flickered for half a second. Just a half second too long. "The client was staying there." I didn't say anything. She walked past me and went straight to the bathroom. The door locked. I sat there, staring at the table, my fists clenched. I started checking the bank statements. There were more charges, more expensive dinners, more hotels. And then there was the jewelry. I found the receipt in her car. A diamond bracelet. $3,400. I knew damn well she didn't buy that for herself. I waited. I waited for her to say something, to tell me about it. She never did. One night, I saw her getting ready for another one of her late work nights. She was standing in front of the mirror, adjusting her necklace. Not the one I had given her for our anniversary. Not the one her mother had left her. A new one. A diamond pendant. "Nice necklace," I said casually. She glanced at me through the mirror, then smiled. "Oh, this? It's just something I picked up. Looks expensive." She shrugged. "Not really." That was the moment I knew. Melissa was cheating on me, and I had no idea what I was going to do about it. I wasn't looking for proof. Not at first. I still wanted to believe I was wrong, that I was just being paranoid. But suspicion has a way of sinking into your bones, making everything feel off, even when you try to ignore it. Then one day, the truth fell right into my lap. It happened at another one of those company events. Melissa had insisted I come, even though I had no interest in spending another evening pretending to be someone I wasn't. But I went. I smiled. I shook hands. I let her introduce me as the owner of a successful automotive business, like she always did. Then I met Tyler. Tyler was a little drunk, a junior analyst or something. Young, eager, and not very good at keeping his mouth shut. I was standing by the bar when he walked up next to me. "Man, you're a real one," he said, slurring slightly. I frowned. "Excuse me?" He grinned. "Just being here, you know? Most guys would have lost it by now. I have no idea what you're talking about." His smile faded just a little. He looked at me, really looked at me, then took a long sip of his drink. "Shit, you don't know." I felt my stomach twist. "Know what?" Tyler hesitated, then glanced over his shoulder, like he was checking to see if anyone else was listening. "Look, man, I shouldn't be saying anything, but it's just everybody knows." "Knows what?" I asked, my voice lower now. He winced. "About Melissa and Eric." The room suddenly felt too hot. My hands clenched into fists at my sides. "Who the hell is Eric?" Tyler blinked. "Her boss." You really didn't know?" I didn't answer. Tyler muttered a curse under his breath. "Shit. Look, forget I said anything, all right?" He downed the rest of his drink and walked away before I could say another word. I stood there, my heart pounding in my ears, my hands shaking with something between rage and humiliation. I felt like a goddamn idiot. Everyone knew. Everyone but me. I left the party without saying a word to Melissa. I needed proof. That night, after she fell asleep, I went through her phone. She was careful. No messages, no photos. But she hadn't cleared her browser history. One of the first things I saw was a search for luxury real estate listings. I clicked on the link. It was a site for high-end homes, the kind of places only millionaires could afford. My heart pounded as I scrolled through the listings. Then I saw it. A house marked as saved. I clicked on it. A $3.2 million home on the other side of town. A mansion. Really. 5 bedrooms, a pool, a massive backyard, sleek and modern. I checked the date. She had saved the listing 2 weeks ago. I kept digging. Bank statements, expensive restaurants, jewelry stores, hotel bookings. Then I went further. I pulled up our shared phone plan and checked her location history. She had been at Eric's condo at least 3 nights a week. I wasn't done. I went through her laptop next. That's when I found the emails. She hadn't even bothered to delete them. Emails between her and Eric, filled with jokes about me. I told Alex I was working late again. He actually believes me. Poor guy. We should start looking for places soon. I can't keep living in that house forever. Ugh, he smells like oil again. I swear. Sometimes I feel like I'm married to a damn janitor. I sat there, reading line after line, my hands trembling with rage. She had been laughing at me, mocking me, plotting a life with someone else while I paid for everything. While I worked my ass off every single day to keep her happy. She never had any intention of staying. She was waiting for the right moment to leave. I closed the laptop and sat in silence. Melissa stirred in bed, mumbling something in her sleep. I stared at her, feeling something I had never felt before. Hatred. I wasn't just going to confront her. I was going to destroy her. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the living room, staring at the laptop, my mind running in circles. The proof was all there. Her emails with Eric, her real estate searches, the way she openly mocked me. I could have confronted her right then and there, woken her up, shoved the screen in her face, demanded an explanation. But I didn't. That would have been too easy, too emotional, too messy. Melissa was planning to leave me. That much was clear. But she wasn't going to do it until she was ready. She was waiting for something. A new house, a better financial situation, something that gave her the upper hand. So I decided to wait too. I played dumb, acted like nothing had changed. And in the meantime, I planned my own escape. I started small. I knew I needed financial independence. For years, every paycheck I earned had gone into our joint account. Melissa had insisted on it. "We're a team," she had said. "What's yours is mine." I had been an idiot to trust her. I opened a new bank account in my name only. Started funneling a portion of my income into it. Just a little at first, so she wouldn't notice. Then I called an old friend, Rick, who owned a repair shop on the other side of town. He had been talking about retirement for a while, looking for someone to take over the business. We met up for drinks. "You serious about selling?" I asked. Rick nodded. "Yeah, but I need the right buyer. Someone who'll take care of the place. I'm interested, I said. He raised an eyebrow. Didn't think you had that kind of cash. I'll get it. I struck a deal with him. He gave me time to gather the funds, and in the meantime, I started working at his shop on weekends under the guise of helping him out. Melissa never even noticed. She was too busy with her late nights and business trips, but that wasn't enough. I knew how Melissa thought. She was always one step ahead, always planning for her own benefit. I had to be smarter, so I enrolled in a business course. It was a 2-year program, mostly online, designed for small business owners. I needed to protect myself. If she was planning to screw me over financially, I needed to make sure I never ended up in this situation again. Meanwhile, Melissa kept up her act. She still kissed me on the cheek before leaving for work, still brought home expensive bottles of wine and claimed they were gifts from clients, still told me she was stressed when I questioned why she never wanted to be intimate anymore. And I kept pretending. Then one morning, I logged into our bank account and saw that she had emptied it. Over 90% of our savings, gone. She had left just enough to cover the upcoming utility bill, as if that would stop me from noticing. I sat there, staring at the screen, my pulse pounding in my ears. She was making her move. I took a deep breath, closed my laptop, and picked up my phone. First, I called Rick. I'm ready to buy the shop, I told him. Cash. Then, I called a lawyer. I knew it was coming. Melissa had drained the bank account. She was spending nights at hotels, and I had a pile of evidence proving she was planning a future with Eric while laughing at me behind my back. But knowing something and seeing it with your own eyes are two very different things. It happened on a Friday night. I had been working late at my new repair shop, setting up paperwork, making sure that when I pulled the trigger, I wouldn't be the one left bleeding. I was exhausted when I finally drove home, ready to crash. But as I pulled up to the house, something felt off. There was a car in the driveway. Not Melissa's. A black Mercedes. I parked down the street, just far enough that I could see the house without being seen. My hands tightened around the steering wheel. I could have left, could have waited, but I needed to see it. I walked up to the front door as quietly as I could and turned the handle. Unlocked. That was the final insult. They hadn't even bothered to lock the damn door. I stepped inside. The house was quiet except for the faint sound of music coming from upstairs. Melissa's favorite playlist. Then I heard something else. Laughter. A man's voice. Eric's voice. Something snapped inside me. I moved without thinking. I took the stairs 2 at a time, my heart pounding in my chest. When I reached the bedroom door, I didn't hesitate. I kicked it open. There they were. Melissa and Eric. In my bed. Melissa screamed, scrambling for the covers. Eric nearly fell off the bed, grabbing his clothes like some pathetic teenager caught sneaking out of a girl's house. I stood in the doorway, breathing hard, watching them panic. Oh my God, Alex. Melissa's voice was shrill, panicked. What the hell are you doing here? I almost laughed. What was I doing here? This is my house, I said coldly. My voice was calm, but my hands were clenched into fists. Or did you forget? Eric, the spineless bastard, finally found his voice. Look, man, this isn't what it looks like. I took a slow step forward. Really? So you're telling me you're not screwing my wife in my bed? Eric opened his mouth, then closed it. Nothing to say now. Melissa had the audacity to get angry. You had no right to barge in here like this, she snapped. That did it. I laughed. Actually laughed. You're cheating on me, in my house, and you think I'm the one in the wrong? Melissa crossed her arms, still clutching the bedsheet to her chest. We're not happy, Alex. You knew this was coming. I stared at her, feeling nothing but disgust. You're right, I said. I did know. I just wanted to see it for myself. Then I stepped aside and gestured toward the door. Get the hell out. Eric grabbed his pants. Come on, Mel, let's just go. Melissa hesitated. She thought she still had power here. She thought she could talk her way out of this. Alex, we need to talk about... I didn't let her finish. I turned, walked downstairs, and grabbed my phone. I'm calling the cops. That got her moving. Within 5 minutes, they were gone. I changed the locks that night, but it wasn't over. Not even close. I should have expected it. Melissa wasn't the type to go quietly. The next day, her father and her brother showed up. I had just finished filing for divorce when I heard the knock at the door. When I opened it, I wasn't surprised to see Jonathan Weston standing there, Melissa's father. He was dressed in one of his custom-tailored suits, looking at me like I was a piece of trash he had forgotten to throw out. Next to him was Tyler, Melissa's older brother. Ex-military. The kind of guy who thought intimidation solved every problem. Jonathan didn't waste time. Alex, he said smoothly, I think we need to have a discussion. I leaned against the doorframe, crossing my arms. Pretty sure there's nothing to talk about. Jonathan sighed. Melissa told me what happened. Obviously, things got emotional. But we're reasonable people. Let's sit down and figure out a fair way to handle this. I smirked. You mean a fair way for Melissa? Tyler took a step forward, cracking his knuckles. Watch your tone. I didn't flinch. I knew guys like him. All bark, no bite. Jonathan gave me a fake smile. Alex, let's be honest. You don't have the resources to fight a divorce. My daughter has good lawyers. This will get messy for you. I let him finish. Then I held up my phone and hit play. Melissa's emails. The ones where she mocked me. The ones where she planned a future with Eric. The ones where she talked about robbing me blind. Jonathan's face went pale. Tyler's fist clenched. You son of a... Easy there. I cut in. Unless you want me to add assault to the list of things I report today. Jonathan exhaled sharply. What do you want? I smiled. Now we were speaking the same language. I want you to leave, I said, and tell Melissa that her life is about to get a whole lot worse. Jonathan hesitated. Then he turned on his heel and walked away, Tyler trailing behind him. I watched them go, then shut the door. The next morning, Melissa was at work, probably thinking she had gotten away with it. She was dead wrong. The divorce battle was brutal, but I was ready for it. Melissa thought she had me cornered. She thought I was just a simple mechanic, an easy target for her and her father's army of lawyers. She had no idea what I had been doing for the past 2 years. I wasn't the same man who had blindly handed over his paycheck to a joint account. I wasn't the fool who trusted her while she laughed about me with her boss. I was prepared for war. Melissa and her family made their first move fast. The morning after she was served, I got a legal notice demanding an equitable division of our assets. Her demands? The house, paid for almost entirely by me. Half of my business, which she assumed was still the small garage I used to work at. My 1969 Mustang, my dream car, which I had rebuilt from the ground up. All of my tools, because, according to her, I wouldn't need them anymore. She thought I would panic, that I would offer a settlement, let her walk away with a fortune just to avoid a fight. She was dead wrong. At our first court hearing, Melissa walked in with her usual confidence, dressed in designer clothes, flanked by her father and a high-powered divorce attorney. I walked in alone. That rattled her. She smirked when she saw me. She thought I was too stupid to hire a lawyer, that I had already lost before the fight even began. Then the judge started the hearing. Her lawyer, a guy named Franklin Masters, went first. He gave a long, dramatic speech about how Melissa had supported my dreams and how she deserved a fair share of our marital assets. He painted me as some lucky grease monkey who had only gotten ahead because of her connections, her money, her influence. Then it was my turn. I handed the judge a thick folder of documents. Bank statements showing that I had paid every mortgage payment, every bill, every repair on the house. Melissa had never contributed a cent. Business records proving that I had purchased my repair shop on my own, using money from a separate account Melissa had never touched. Evidence that I had refinanced the house in my own name, removing her father's involvement entirely. Melissa's smirk disappeared when the judge flipped through the paperwork. Then came the emails. I had included printed copies of every message she had sent to Eric. The ones where she mocked me, where she plotted to leave once I had paid enough into the house. When the judge finished reading, she took off her glasses and sighed. Then she turned to Melissa's lawyer. Does your client have any rebuttal to this? Franklin cleared his throat. Your Honor, we request a brief recess to... No, the judge said, shutting that down immediately. We're proceeding. Melissa's face turned pale. She knew. She had lost. Her lawyer tried one last desperate move. Your Honor, my client should still be entitled to a portion of the business, given the duration of the marriage. The judge shook her head. The business was purchased independently. Ms. Weston has no claim to it. Melissa snapped. This is ridiculous, she shouted, standing up so fast her chair nearly tipped over. I deserve that money. I built that life. He wouldn't have anything if it weren't for me. The judge did not care. She ruled right then and there. Melissa got nothing. No house. No business. No tools. No Mustang. She got her Tesla Model S because it was registered in her name. And she got small alimony payments for 6 months. That was it. She went from planning a future in a $3.2 million mansion with her rich boss to being forced to drive away in a car. She had to start making payments on herself. When we walked out of the courtroom, Jonathan was fuming. He stormed over to me, his face red. "You think you've won?" he hissed. I smiled. "I know I have." Melissa didn't say a word. She just stood there, clutching her designer purse, staring at me like she couldn't believe this was happening, like she had never even considered that I might fight back. Then she turned and walked away, her heels clicking against the floor, disappearing down the hallway. And just like that, she was gone. After the trial, I thought I'd feel a surge of triumph, maybe some sense of satisfaction, knowing that Melissa had been left with almost nothing. But instead, I just felt free, like I had walked out of a prison I hadn't even realized I was trapped in. I moved forward. Melissa, however, spiraled. At first, she tried to keep up appearances. She still drove her Tesla to work, still wore her designer clothes, still acted like she had everything under control. But without my money, without my house, without the cushy life I had unknowingly built for her, cracks started to show. Then Eric dumped her. It didn't take long. Less than a month after the trial, he ghosted her completely. Turns out, Eric hadn't been in love with Melissa. He had been in love with her lifestyle. The vacations, the fancy dinners, the future in a multimillion-dollar home that he wouldn't have to pay for. When he realized that she had nothing to offer him, he cut ties. Melissa had been so sure that she had one, that Eric was her escape plan, that she was trading up. But in reality, she had bet on the wrong horse. She lost her house. She lost her marriage. She lost her sugar daddy. And then, she lost her job. I wasn't the one who ruined her reputation. She did that herself. Word spread fast in her office. It turned out, she hadn't been as discreet as she thought. People had heard things. Whispers about her affair. Her co-workers, the ones who had once admired her, now saw her for what she was. She got called into a meeting with HR. I wasn't there, obviously, but a mutual acquaintance, Samantha, one of Melissa's former friends, told me what happened. Melissa sat in the office, confused, as they pulled out expense reports. Turns out, all those lavish dinners, the business trips, she had charged them to the company. The hotel stays with Eric, the jewelry, the $700 steakhouse bills, all on the corporate card. They fired her on the spot. I found out about it when I saw her Tesla parked outside a run-down apartment complex 2 towns over. That's where she lived now. Meanwhile, her father, Jonathan Weston, had his own downfall. The business world is small, and people talk. When word got out that he had tried to force me out of my own house, that he had sent his goon of a son to intimidate me, investors pulled out of his deals. Clients backed off. His company's stock plummeted. Melissa had spent years looking down on me for being a mechanic. But in the end, I was the one still standing. Because while they were falling apart, I was thriving. I expanded my business, opened 2 more repair shops, built a solid client base, even signed contracts with major dealerships to handle their high-end vehicle repairs. And the best part? I did it all on my own. I wasn't Melissa's pet project. I wasn't some dumb grease monkey who needed rescuing. I was a successful businessman. A year passed, and for the first time in a long time, I was happy. Then the letters started. At first, they came once a month, then once a week, then every few days. Melissa was trying to reach out. The first letter was apologetic. "Alex, I've been doing a lot of thinking. I made a mistake. I was selfish. I lost everything, and I realize now that I had something amazing with you. I miss you. Please, let's talk." I threw it in the trash. The second letter was desperate. "I don't have anyone left. My dad won't speak to me. My so-called friends disappeared the moment I lost my job. I need you. I need you, Alex. Can we meet? Please." I didn't respond. The third letter was angry. "So that's it? You're just going to ignore me? After everything we went through? You're pathetic, Alex. You were nothing before me, and you'll be nothing without me." That one made me laugh. The last letter was silent. No begging. No insults. Just one sentence. "I wish I had chosen you. Too bad." I never wrote back. Not once. I moved on. I never set out to prove anything to anyone. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need to make Melissa regret what she did. I just wanted to build something for myself, something real, something that no one could take away from me. Turns out, success is the best revenge. After the divorce, I threw myself into my work. I wasn't just fixing cars anymore. I was running 3 full-scale auto repair shops, each one packed with business. The old days of scraping by, counting every dollar, hoping for enough work to cover the bills? Gone. I was earning 4 times what I used to make as a hired mechanic, but I still got my hands dirty. I refused to sit in an office. That was never me. I loved fixing things. I loved the smell of motor oil, the weight of a wrench in my hand, the satisfaction of hearing an engine purr after a full rebuild. But now, I wasn't just working on any cars. I had contracts with major dealerships, handling their high-end customers. I had celebrity clients, people with sports cars worth more than my old house. The best part? The people who used to look down on me? The ones who laughed when Melissa introduced me as a small-time mechanic? They started showing up at my shop. I remember the first one, Chris Donovan, one of Melissa's former coworkers. A guy who used to barely acknowledge me at those corporate events, too busy sipping expensive whiskey and bragging about his latest promotion. He walked into my shop one afternoon, sheepish as hell. "Hey, Alex," he said, scratching the back of his head. "Got a bit of a situation. My Audi's transmission is acting up, and I heard you were the guy to see." I wiped my hands on a rag and smirked. "Oh, so now I'm the guy to see?" Chris laughed awkwardly. "Yeah, I guess I was kind of a dick back in the day." I didn't deny it. I just nodded and said, "We charge premium rates for imports. You still interested?" He didn't even hesitate. "Yeah, of course. Whatever it costs." Melissa's old circle? They weren't laughing anymore. They were booking appointments months in advance, paying top dollar for my work. I didn't rub it in their faces. I didn't need to. I just took their money and fixed their cars. It was the same with her father, Jonathan. He lost most of his power after our divorce battle. Too many people saw how he had tried to strong-arm me, how he had bet on the wrong side. His reputation took a hit, his influence shrank, and his business started struggling. And then, one day, he called me. I almost didn't pick up, but curiosity got the better of me. "Alex," he said smoothly, like we were old friends, "I have a business proposition for you." I nearly laughed. "A business proposition?" "Yes. I know we've had our differences, but I've been following your success. You've built something impressive. I was wondering if you'd be interested in partnering on a new venture, something that could be mutually beneficial." I leaned back in my chair, smiling to myself. "Jonathan," I said, "you spent years looking down on me. You tried to steal my house. You sent your son to intimidate me. And now, because you've lost your grip, you want to do business with me?" Silence. Then, finally, he cleared his throat. "Look, I may have been short-sighted. No, Jonathan, you were arrogant. And now you're desperate." I let that hang in the air for a moment. Then I hung up. I didn't need his deals. I had my own. Life, for the first time in years, was good. No drama. No stress. No walking on eggshells in my own home. Just peace. Some nights, I'd sit outside my house, and drink a beer, staring up at the stars. I didn't think about Melissa. Not even once.